Hello, faithful, and welcome to another edition of White Throne Metal Radio's Top 10 Songs. I am your host, Keven Crothers, station manager for White Throne Metal Radio and staff writer for Heaven's Metal magazine. Today I'm going to talk about a band. We're going to look at 10 great songs. Really very, very difficult for me to, couple of things, to try to narrow down just 10. And this band doesn't quite fit the normal quote-unquote heavy metal / hard rock vein that most of you are probably used to when they tune in here. I mean, we've talked about some lighter weight fare occasionally, not too much on the channel so far, but this one, I mean, we do say hard rock, and that can be defined in many ways, can it? So today I want to talk about what's called alternative rock, Christian alternative rock band, Undercover. Undercover started off really as more of like a new wave band. The first release, they got labeled punk. We say punk in quotes. Punk really, I mean, they're not. This is nothing like the Sex Pistols. It's nothing like the Ramones. Okay. Undercover started off very much kind of a new wave band, and let me preface all of this to say this is not some type of scholarly review of everything. By no means am I the be-all, end-all knowledge when it comes to Undercover or any of the bands I talk about on this channel. But in this case, I would like to say as I went back through this catalog, I've come to realize how much I really, really loved their material all the way. I saw them first in '85 it was a free concert, I think in Richmond, California. I was with a youth group from Hayward, and we went. Sim, the new vocalist at the time, had just come on board. Branded had not been released. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, I had a chance to see them, and I was just enamored with Jim's guitar playing. Jim Nicholson, he had the mohawk, sporting the mohawk, but it was that crunchy guitar that just, it hooked me and held me close. And that's one of the things that, I've always loved about Undercover. And even though the first album or two or three, really, they started off as a new wave type band. And the first album, which I never really had a chance to hear until recently, when I was able to find a couple of these compilation discs. And on the Undercover Volume 1 here has their debut. It was an independent release, 6 members in the band, and really had never heard it until recently. And then once I finally got a chance to hear it, I was like, okay, it's more along the lines of their second album called God Rules. I think I may have a cassette here. Sure enough, God Rules. It is very new wavy. The guitar is not as prominent. Very catchy, very melodic, very hook driven, like most of their material is. But it definitely had lyrically a black and white type mentality, which was great, and I still appreciate it. God Rules was the second album, the third record to come out here, which I do have here on the vinyl behind me, which I didn't even realize I had until I started digging through stuff, is Boys and Girls Renounce the World. The guitar has a little bit more driving influence on it. I played this cassette to death. I really did. Again, didn't even realize I had the vinyl, let alone I have the vinyl. It's kind of obscured now, but for I Love God as well. After that came, really in some respects, perhaps their seminal album, Branded, cassette, vinyl, CD reissue, and lots of things changed. Vocals changed. Lyrical concepts changed. The music got heavier, darker, and it just grabbed me. It had Jim's guitar right there. Of course, Ojo Taylor, the keyboard player, main songwriter, main lyricist, and he and Jim have always been really the driving force of the band. Throughout all the years, there had been different members. Apparently, after 1995, I think it was, the band members had kind of said at that point, even though we've had all these other members and they've all still remained good friends, Undercover really is Ojo Taylor, who would play keyboards, bass. A lot of times it was that keyboard bass. Jim Nicholson on guitars, Sim Wilson on vocals, and Gary Dean Olson on drums, powerhouse drummer. And never to forget Bill Walden, who was the lead vocalist on the first 3 Undercover records. He was the vocalist I was first introduced to, even though when I first saw them, Sim was the singer at that time. Because when I went back and listened to Boys and Girls, it was different. So after Branded, they released a live album, 3/28/87, which also, I don't have the original CD release, but then they also released 2 anthology sets, and I only have this one. This anthology has the live album. It has the follow-up album to that, which is Balance of Power. Branded and Balance of Power were recorded at Pachyderm Studios, produced by Undercover. Branded was mixed by Dino Elefante. Not produced, but just mixed. And I'm sure Dino had some input. There's a couple of notes throughout the liner notes of Branded where they say, Dino influenced here. But Balance of Power was another turn for the band, because essentially after Branded and the live record, they broke up. Took a sabbatical, whatever you want to call it. About 3 years later, they came back with Branded, 1990, and this Undercover is different. It musically is more like The Cult, where it's got this alternative vibe, but it's a more hard rock, with this heavy alternative feel. It's ominous in its tone. Lyrically, again, very introspective, where the early records were more black-white preaching. From Branded forward, much more introspective, which frankly back in the day was kind of lost on me. Sorry, I'm a metalhead. I'm going, is the music good? Okay, great. If the music's good, the lyrics, I don't care. But as I've gotten older and grown, and that's never to demean the lyrical work that was done back then. And I know we're going through a lot of stuff to get to my top 10. Just bear with me, if you will. Lyrically, at that point, as I've gotten older, I'm in my 50s now, sorry. Over the last 10, 15, 20 years, lyrical concepts and things, especially when it comes to matters of faith, are so much more important to me. Because not everything is black and white anymore. There are some things, there are certain essentials, but there are lots of other things. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of room between the guardrails, to quote a certain Christian writer. So Balance of Power was followed up by an album called Devotion. Now, I had Devotion on a cassette, and I think it got destroyed because I don't have it anymore. But it also appears on the anthology, so I don't even have a cover that I can show you. Yeah, because they don't have a cover inside the anthology disc. That album came out in '92, and then after that record, Sim left the band. New vocalist came on board, and you would think I would have had that laid out. Their last record was Forum, which was released in 1994, and the vocals on here, Sorry guys, I don't have it right here handy with me. And you would think Rob Gallus, vocals, sorry, don't mean to delay. Usually I have this stuff, try to have it laid out. But it was the last Undercover record for quite a long time. The anthology albums were released. This Forum album was also part of this 4 CD anthology. They also released the anthology of the first 4 albums. Branded was remastered, reissued here about 9 years ago on Intense Millennium Records. Sounds fantastic. It's a great edition of the album. Now, there was a Live at Cornerstone album that was released. I don't have that. There was also another album, and I have to admit, I just kind of missed it, called I Rose Falling. Came out in 2002. Don't have it, haven't heard it. So how can you say my favorites? I go right back to these classics. And yes, there's also a new remaster, reissue for Balance of Power. COVID-19, unfortunately, has kind of put the kibosh on all that. So we're waiting, not kibosh, but it's delayed everything. So I don't have it here. But I've ordered it. I do believe they've done one for Devotion as well. So let's get down to it. My top 10, songs. And when I started going through my cassette boxes and all this stuff, and I was like, man, I really have a lot of material from Undercover. Seen them 3 times. Like I said, I saw them the first time in basically a high school auditorium in Richmond, California. I saw them open for Stryper in 1986 at the Concord Pavilion after the Branded album was released. Then I saw them, and I'm almost positive, if somebody else was there, please give me some confirmation. They played the Omni nightclub in Oakland for Balance of Power. I could be wrong about that. I know I saw the 77s there. I've seen Vengeance Right. I've seen lots of bands there, and I'm almost positive I saw Undercover there. And it was on that Balance of Power tour. It was a show in support of that. I could be wrong. So anyway, let's get down to it. Top 10. Top 10 songs. Number 10 is the title track off that second album, I Love God. And I really had a struggle here. These are 10 favorite songs. And there's going to be a couple of you are going to be surprised that I don't have a couple of songs in this top 10. But I Love God, it's a great anthemic song. It on the live album, I believe they do. It is on here. Of course it is. Great guitar playing. I just remember it added all that edge that the original version just didn't have. As they got heavier and darker, Jim's guitar, which took that more prominent role, really helped to drive the edge on that song.
Call me by my name. Now it's not the same since I looked at things that way. Now I'm proud to say I love God. I love God.
I Love God comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 off the Devotion album, Dark Night. It's a haunting, kind of moody, kind of jazzy perhaps riff, talking about, in a sense, the dark night, and part of me goes, when I listen to it, I'm often wondering, is it the dark night of the soul? Is it the dark night before one comes to faith? Is it perhaps the dark night after you come to faith and you come back to faith? It's very moody. It's haunting. I totally dig it. Totally dig that song. Dark Night comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 off of Boys and Girls Renounce the World is Anyone Thirsty. A great anthemic song. A brilliant track, upbeat, fast. A great album opener on the live album. A great song off of Boys and Girls Renounce the World.
Is anyone thirsty? Is anyone thirsty? The cry went out to a thirsty crowd. God stood up and cried out loud. If anyone then will come to me, I can turn his life.
Is anyone thirsty? Could have picked several songs off of that record. It just top my 10 favorites, and it was like I say, it's kind of, man, again, some of these aren't in really any particular order until we get my top 2 or 3, but man. Okay, coming in at number 7, also off of Devotion, Work It Out. I often think of, work out your salvation, work out these problems, work it out, work out my own personal internal issues into a driving, upbeat rhythm. Jim plays is fabulous. It sounds to me, like he's using a wah pedal in the guitar solo. It has this funky, I don't know, feels like a 60s kind of upbeat groove. Edgy as all get out. Devotion was a great follow-up to Balance of Power. So Work It Out comes in at number 7.
Last night the telephone kept yelling at me. Everybody's got their thing. Someday I'm gonna work it out. So let me work it out. Work it out, yeah. Work it out.
Coming at number 6, off of Branded, Tears in My Eyes. You could say it's a companion piece to their song God Rules. Tears in My Eyes, it's Jesus holding his hands out to you. It's fast, it's driving, it's not quite hardcore as far as music. Very similar, I think. Like I say, it's a companion piece. It runs under 2 minutes, and it's heavy, fast. Gary's drum playing is off the chart on that album as well as the song. Tears in My Eyes comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, off of Balance of Power, The Way of the Rose. Haunting, the Via Dolorosa. It's one of these songs the whole Balance of Power album has this huge, probably now people would say, it sounds too big, it sounds too boomy, it sounds too 80s. It's perfect. It fits the ambiance of the music, of not just the lyrics, but the song, The Way of the Rose. All of these issues and things dealing with the crucifixion of Jesus, how it relates to us. It's haunting. The Way of the Rose comes in at number 5. Number 4 off of Branded, a very worshipful sounding Come Away With Me. Next to the album closer, it's one of those songs, I hear it, I start singing the chorus, I go right back to it. And it's Jesus calling out to you and all of this pain, and Come Away With Me comes in at number 4.
I watched you cry yourself to sleep. I watched you, I felt you cry yourself
Branded. Time. Time keeps slipping away from me. Silver and gold becomes a brass token. I tell you, you could be 20 years old and then you wake up one day and all of a sudden you're in your 40s or your 50s. God willing, you live that long, and you're going, what happened? How did I get here? Let alone everything else. All of this change, it's crazy. And it's a great song. Again, the lyrics on that song were written by Sim, and he just nails it, I think. Time comes in at number 3. Number 2, also coming in off a Balance of Power. And I got to tell you, Balance of Power and Branded, when I went back and listened to Branded, it was really hard not to have half the list from Branded. It's really hard not to have half the list from Balance of Power. But this song, number 2, it's the album closer. Mea culpa, remember me. It's a long track. It's also haunting. Great guitar solo. There's a tempo change. The vocals are strong. Mea culpa. You realize the wrong that you have done. Did I do wrong? Please remember me, Lord Jesus. It's this outpouring of guilt, of remembrance. But musically heavy, and I really wish I could have that remaster to compare it to. I know it's coming eventually, but mea culpa, remember me. Gosh. Which leads me to my number 1 song by Undercover. And almost any of these songs, there are songs I've left off this list. Some of you, I'm sure, are jumping up and down if you're hardcore Undercover fans going, but. And here's the thing. They were hard rock. They were metal in attitude. They were, you could say, punk in attitude, as far as we don't want to be like the normal, we'll say, A plus B equals C Christianity, da-da-da-da-da-da. We're not above sharing our questions. We're not above sharing our some of our own faults and issues. I can't, back in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, it was all of this how to, how to be a better Christian, how to be a better dad, how to do, and it's like, well, if you follow these 8 steps, everything is perfect. And if you've lived life at all, it ain't perfect. Because my number 1 song, I'm Just a Man. I'm Just a Man. And that's a song, when I went back through over the last couple of weeks as I've been re-listening to all of these albums, speaks to me in so many ways. And we're going to take a break. I'll be back.
I'm sorry for the way I've been. God, please wash away my sin. Look down upon my circumstance. Please give me a second chance. Oh, yeah. I'm just a man. I'm just a man. I'm just a man. I'm just a man.
Okay, had to take a quick phone call, but had to come back. Again, number 1, I'm Just a Man. How about some honorable mentions? Off of Branded, Pilot, Darkest Hour. It's like that song, when I went back through it, it's like, how do I leave Darkest Hour off of this list? Just overwhelming. A great song. How about off of Boys and Girls Renounce the World, Three Nails, 3 Days, One Way to God. Or the title track, Boys and Girls. How about, they used to do Holy, 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 this fast, upbeat song. Or I'd Rather Stay. The song I'd Rather Stay off of Boys and Girls, to me, was always kind of like a prelude to Come Away With Me, I think. Great track. Of course, off of the God Rules album, the title song, God Rules. And you're probably going, how did you not put that on your top 10 list? It was very difficult. If I called a mulligan, I would have had I Love God and God Rules, if that makes you feel better. God Rules, a great song. Wait a Minute was another great song. Kind of like off of Boys and Girls Renounce the World. One of These Days. Great stuff. Again, off of Branded. Where Can I Go? Another just a great anthemic song. Build a Castle. Cry Myself to Sleep. Fabulous stuff. World Comes Crashing Down off of Balance of Power. The Eyes of Love. Last Rites. Love Me Dangerously. Land of Luxury. There's so many great songs. Off of Devotion. Oh Man. Sea of Tranquility and Purple Flower. Those songs, they're fantastic. And I have to tell you, when it gets to the Forum album, when I went back and re-listened to Forum, I just had a hard time. It just doesn't feel the same to me. I know musically they were changing a little more again. The opening song, Spill, was good. The title track, Forum, parentheses, Lullaby, I think is a good song. But the rest of it just didn't grab me. It just didn't hit me the same way. So there we have it. Undercover. My top 10. Number 10, I Love God. Number 9, Dark Night. Number 8 is Anyone Thirsty. Number 7, Work It Out. Number 6, Tears in My Eyes. Number 5, The Way of the Rose. Number 4, Come Away With Me. Number 3, Time. Number 2, Mea Culpa, Remember Me. And number 1, I'm Just a Man. Hey, give me what are your top 10 Undercover songs? Put them in the comments below. Let me know what you like. Subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to say your prayers. And God bless.